MMA fans, welcome back to Carl Prusa. I am with Mr. Jake Hager, formerly known as Jack Swagger from the WWE, former Bellator superstar.
Keep your hands up.
Jake, so obviously we all know you from wrestling, and then you kind of maybe surprised a few people. You explored the MMA option. You did some fights over in Bellator. What was that transition like? What made you want to step into the MMA side of the world?
Well, I wanted to step into the MMA side of the world because it's really who I am. All-American wrestler, grew up amateur wrestling at the age of 5, so it was really a natural fit to me, and I wish I would have got into it sooner. The transition was hard. I'm not gonna lie, it was a grind. I knew how to wrestle, but I didn't know how to box. I didn't know how to kickbox. I didn't know how to do jiu-jitsu. I knew nothing about cage wrestling. I was out of shape, so it was about 2017 to about the beginning of 2019. Those 2 years were like a grind for me. I was practicing Monday through Friday, trying to learn all these new skills, and then on the weekends I'd have to go and wrestle independent shows to pay the bills. So it was a great experience, really like burned the fat off my soul, as they say. I really feel like it saved my life going into MMA, and like kind of helping me find out who I am again, type deal.
You know, one thing I really talk about with the regional guys that I cover, the sacrifices being a fighter. At the regional level, they might be making $800 to win, $800 to show. They have 40-hour jobs. They have families. You just alluded to when you were doing your training and when you were competing, you had to do the shows on the side. What motivated you? What was the motivation to do all that stuff, get punched in the face through the endless hours of training to chase your dream?
At the end of the day, you have to know your value. I left the WWE because they weren't valuing me at what I should be at, and that's a gamble. You got to bet on yourself sometimes. And once I left them, it was really motivating to find out what next. I knew that if I could get there, that I'd be good at it. But you gotta get there. And I'm a really, I don't know, self-motivated person. I got kids, so when I put my daughter into bed at night, I remember like a independent show canceling. I don't know how I'm going to pay the bills that week, and I'm like almost in tears, but I'm like rocking my daughter because she's going to bed. You know, it's like moments like that I always like remember. Like, what am I going to do? Type deal, and you just keep going forward, and you figure it out. And definitely had some bumps in the road financially. Like right before the first fight, I lost 2 months of bookings wrestling, so I had no way. I had to like take a mortgage out of my house and figure it out. But the whole point for me to go into MMA was to become a bigger star. Use my television background, go into MMA. Both pro wrestling and MMA were growing in popularity. They still are. And then use them to make, to pay the bills. Really, the motivation was to pay the bills. A lot of people want championships. I just want to pay the bills.
You know, since your departure from Bellator, they recently merged with PFL. PFL bought out Bellator. What are your thoughts on that?
It's very cool. It's almost like pro wrestling where you got 2 different promotions and you can do these cross-promotional fights. The matchups are interesting. It makes it fresh. The PFL heavyweight is just insane. I mean, that's Ryan Bader. Just ridiculous.
Francis Ngannou.
Yeah. Just ridiculous. It'll be interesting. I think it's really cool what PFL is doing. I love the bracket. I love the tournament. I think more fights should be like that. More tournaments, and because you got all these ranked fighters with the matchups. Let's see, who the underdog is, who the dark horse is. So it's really cool, and it just seems like there's a lot of money in both MMA. So. It's exciting to see the wrestlers and the fighters get paid more.
All right, last question for you, Jake. You've been a fan of mixed martial arts for a very long time before you got into wrestling. The sport has changed a lot, has evolved drastically in the last 15 to 20 years. At one time, senators were calling MMA human cockfighting. It was banned in so many different places. Now we're at a point where it's as mainstream as ever. You have all these different organizations, bare knuckle, all these regional promotions, like pathways for guys to get to the big shows. Were you surprised that it blew up the way it did?
It's incredible. It really is. The popularity grew. Not only the popularity, but there's a learning curve to watch MMA. You might see guys laying on the ground, and you're like, what are they doing? You don't know if you haven't learned it, I guess. So it's very exciting to see how popular it is. I mean, it's almost like you go back to the days of the Coliseum and Gladiators type deal. And it's also cool, like, even during the pandemic, to see like UFC kind of lead society out of whatever we were in and start having shows again and bring us back to our normal thing. So it's a piece of our lives right now, for sure.
Well, Jake, thank you for talking to me today. Wish you nothing but the best, man. That's Jake Hager. I'm Carl Perusa. Stick around.